The emergency room at St. Luke's Hospital in downtown Chicago buzzed with its usual Friday night chaos. Sirens screamed in the distance. Paramedics shouted vitals, while patients moaned in the crowded waiting area. Among the commotion moved Ellie Harper, a 38-year-old nurse with cropped brown hair and weary green eyes. Her navy blue scrubs bore the stain of an earlier coffee spill, but she barely noticed. She'd survived worse. As a single mother raising her 12-year-old daughter, Mia, Ellie had long learned to navigate pressure and pain. But something about tonight felt different, heavier. More dangerous. Ellie was reviewing a chart when she spotted a group of young men loitering near the triage counter. 5 in total, wearing oversized hoodies and jeans. Their expressions were hard, their eyes scanning the room with a predator's gaze. One of them, a tall man with a shaved head and a scar etched across his cheek, leaned against the wall and smirked. Ellie's instincts stirred. She'd grown up around trouble and knew the look of gang members when she saw them. Her eyes flicked to the security guard, Mike, a bulky man in his 50s too preoccupied by a drunk patient ranting about lost shoes. The scarred man caught Ellie's glance and grinned slowly. Uneasy, she turned back to her duties and carried a tray of supplies to a curtained bay, where a teenage girl waited with a broken arm. While treating her, Ellie caught fragments of the men's conversation. "Find him, make it fast." Her hand trembled slightly as she finished the splint. "You're doing amazing, sweetheart," she whispered to the girl, her voice calm despite the tension building in her chest. As Ellie returned to the nurse's station, the scarred man stepped into her path. Up close, he reeked of cigarettes. "You seen a guy named Rico?" he asked, voice low and edged with threat. Rico. He'd come in earlier with a stab wound and had already been discharged. Ellie held his gaze. "I don't know anyone by that name," she replied steadily. But her heart pounded. The area was packed, but help seemed far away. "Don't play games, nurse," he growled, moving closer. His companions tightened their circle around her. Ellie held her ground. "I said, I don't know him. Now get out of my way." He stared at her for a beat, then let out a cold laugh. "You've got guts," he sneered. "That's gonna cost you." Before she could react, he shoved her hard. Ellie fell into a supply cart, pain shooting through her shoulder. People gasped, but didn't step in. The gang laughed as she struggled up, fire in her eyes. "Leave now, or I'll call security," she warned, voice shaking. He scoffed. "That old guy? He can't save you." He grabbed her arm. Ellie twisted, her self-defense training kicking in. She slammed her elbow into his ribs. He grunted, but another gang member grabbed her from behind. The scarred man raised his fist and struck her across the jaw. Her world spun. She crashed to the ground. Pain exploding in her ribs from the next blow. Through the haze, she thought of Mia. Her little girl at home, probably watching cartoons. Ellie couldn't die here. Not now. Her fingers brushed something solid, a broken chair leg from the waiting room. She wrapped her hand around it just as the scarred man grabbed her hair. "You done yet?" he sneered. Ellie looked him in the eye, and something inside her snapped. With a cry, she swung the chair leg and caught him across the temple. He staggered back, blood dripping from the gash. His crew froze, stunned. Ellie stood, gripping the chair leg like a weapon. Her jaw ached, her ribs throbbed, but she didn't waver. "Stay back," she shouted, voice raw. The room fell silent as everyone turned to watch. The scarred man wiped at the blood, furious. "You're finished," he spat, pulling a knife. Fear surged, but Ellie didn't retreat. She'd battled worse, a drug-addicted mother, an abusive ex, double shifts to make rent. She stood firm. Suddenly, Mike burst through the crowd, radio in hand. "Police are on their way," he yelled. The gang members hesitated. Sirens drew closer. "You're lucky," the scarred man hissed, backing off. "This isn't over." They fled, vanishing into the night. Ellie collapsed to the floor, trembling. Nurses surrounded her, offering support and concern. "You all right, Ellie?" She nodded, even though every inch of her screamed. But the gang's threat rang loud in her head. Cops arrived, took her statement, and pulled security footage. They said they'd investigate, but Ellie knew how it worked. Gangs didn't disappear easily. After her shift ended at 2 a.m., Ellie drove her dented Honda back to her apartment in Englewood, a place no stranger to gunshots. Mia was asleep on the couch. The babysitter whispered that she'd asked for her mom all night. Ellie kissed Mia's forehead and sat alone, staring at the broken chair leg on her kitchen table, a grim trophy of survival. "This ain't over," echoed in her mind. The next morning, she called in sick. When Mia asked about the bruises, Ellie lied, "I fell at work," but Mia wasn't convinced. "You're tough, Mom. But you don't trip," she said quietly. That afternoon, Ellie got a call from an unknown number. "You got lucky last night, nurse. Rico's hours are ticking down. Stay out of it, or you're next." Click. Her hands shook. Rico had witnessed something, Ellie was sure now. She pulled his file from the hospital records. Ricardo Alvarez, 19, no gang affiliation. But a note from the attending physician confirmed her fear. Rico had witnessed a shooting. He'd seen something dangerous. That's why they were after him. Ellie drove to the housing project listed on his chart. The buildings were crumbling, covered in graffiti. Kids played nearby, unfazed. Ellie knocked on his door, no answer. A neighbor told her Rico had left early looking scared. "You a cop?" she asked. Ellie shook her head. "He's a good boy," the woman said. "But he's caught up in something real bad." Before Ellie could leave, a voice froze her in place. Well, look who came back." The scarred man stepped out from the stairwell, knife in hand. Two others followed. Ellie gripped the chair leg hidden in her jacket. "You just don't learn, do you?" he said. "Stay back," she warned. He laughed. Too late. He lunged. Ellie swung the chair leg, knocking the knife from his hand. One of the others tackled her, slamming her into the wall. Pain burst through her ribs again. Just as the scarred man reached for his weapon, a voice shouted from behind. "Get away from her." It was Rico. A baseball bat in hand, fear in his eyes, but ready to fight. While the gang turned, Ellie struck her attacker and broke free. Rico swung his bat, landing a blow. The scarred man charged, but Ellie hit him in the back of the head. He collapsed, unconscious. The last gang member ran. Ellie and Rico stood, panting. "You all right?" Rico asked. "Why'd you come back?" "I saw what they did to you. Couldn't let them do it again. Not for my sake." Rico explained he'd witnessed the scarred man's brother kill someone. They'd been hunting him ever since. Ellie convinced him to go to the police. They drove to the station together. Officers placed Rico in protective custody. With his testimony, they began building a case. But it wasn't over. 2 nights later, a brick smashed through Ellie's window. A note tied to it, "You're next." Ellie sent Mia to her grandmother's in Indiana. She contacted Jamal, a childhood friend and former Marine who still had contacts in the neighborhood. He learned Marcus, the gang leader and the killer Rico saw, was preparing to flee. He'd also placed a bounty on Ellie. So, they set a trap. Word spread, Ellie was meeting Rico at a park, trying to convince him not to testify. Marcus took the bait. That night, Ellie waited in the park. Jamal and his Marine friends hid nearby. Marcus arrived, 3 men in tow. "Where is he?" he demanded. He's gone, Ellie said. You won't find him. Marcus aimed a gun. Then you'll do. Before he could pull the trigger, Jamal's team struck. They disarmed the gang members. Ellie swung the chair leg, striking Marcus in the knee. He crumpled. Jamal pinned him down. Police arrived moments later and arrested them all. Rico testified. The gang's leadership collapsed. Ellie returned to her job. Her wounds healed, her resolve stronger. The chair leg remained on her table, a reminder of her fight. Mia came home. Life slowly settled. One night, Mia hugged her tightly. You're the bravest person I know, she said. Ellie smiled, tears stinging her eyes. I just did what I had to.